Starting. Can you hear me? Thumbs up again. Alhamdulillah. Okay, sure. So we'll be starting now. So Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar. Thank you for being here this morning with Perdaus. Yeah, I muted already. Thank you. Okay, so thank you again. We are so pleased to have you here this morning with us for our monthly date with Perdaus with Ustaz Dr Muhammad Haniff this morning. So today, Ustaz Haniff will be talking about the Night Ascension, Lessons for a Righteous Society. Just a bit of information about Monthly Date with Perdaus. It is a monthly online session for Perdaus to discuss and talk about issues that is educational and community-based for the benefit of our community. In fact, next month we will be having a monthly date with Perdaus with Ustazah Nadia Hanim. The topic is Ramadan in the New Dawn with Children. And also an Instagram live for me, Power Up Your Night of Power with the powerful brothers Ustaz Taufik and Ustaz Hidayat, inshallah. So do register with us to be able to join us. The link is actually on the chat box if you're here on Zoom with us. We would also like to have a special thanks to jomsembang.sg for a wonderful service to us this morning due to some last minute changes. So we are pleased to have them with us today. So a bit of housekeeping, just to talk to you about the program. Our session will be starting soon. Inshallah, after 1 hour of Ustaz Haniff's presentation, we will be having the Q&A session. And after that, we will be having the feedback and closing du'as, inshallah. So if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask straight away, or just type in the chat box. That will be fine. So, but if you want to remain anonymous, you can actually go to bit.ly/perdausdatequery and submit your anonymous question over there. So, a bit of Perdaus. We are actually a Malay Muslim welfare organization from 1965 and from 1964, and our educational services have been around for a long time. We cater from the very young to the very young at heart. Basically, one of our services is actually Iyad Perdaus, a pioneer MMO childcare center that embraces an integrated learning space for children. So we have children with mild to moderate special needs entering the childcare center for them to learn from each other. Next, we have our Madrasah Perdaus. So it is a weekend Islamic school with an experiential learning approach. We have nursery levels through secondary school levels. And we also have youth level programs for post-secondary school age students. Our methodology is experiential and service learning. And best of all, it has no exams. Next, lastly, we have adult programs. So we have basic modules of Fardu Ain and Fardu Kifayah, learning about Salat and about recitation for our adult participants. And we also have contemporary tafsir with Ustaz Dr Haniff Hassan, who is also our speaker for today. For more information on our services, you can also go to our website. Besides that, as a charity, we also accept zakat and donations. We also provide Qurban services. Inshallah, the coming Qurban, we will also be providing similar Qurban services as well. We also fundraise for certain compelling projects such as emergency relief funds and disasters. And in fact, for Ramadan, for this upcoming Ramadan, we are also having a fundraising sale on Ajwa dates. If you are interested, please scan the QR code here to order your dates, which will be delivered to your house, or it's also available for pickup. Okay. So, before we start, I think we can talk about our distinguished speaker for today, Ustaz Muhammad Dr Haniff Hassan. So, Ustaz Muhammad Haniff Hassan is a research fellow at S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies, or RSIS. He is also, again, our lecturer and developer for the Perdaus bi-weekly series, Contemporary Reflections of the Quran, or its nickname, Contemporary Tafsir of the Quran. He is also the former manager for Perdaus Secretariat. Ustaz is also an alumni of the famous Madrasah Al-Junaid Islamiyah. After that, he went to University Kebangsaan Malaysia for a BA with honours in Sharia and Civil Law before proceeding to his strategic studies for PhD in RSNTU. MashaAllah. Besides that, as a community leader, he is also involved in many boards. He is in the Sharia Appeal Board at MUIS, at the Asatiza Recognition Board, and at Perdaus as well, and also a member for the Broadcast Publication and Art Appeal Committee under MDA Singapore. So, besides that, I would say that Ustaz Haniff is also a prolific writer. He has contributed to a variety of articles in Berita Harian, Berita Media Corp, and also Straits Times. He has published several books and pamphlets. In fact, Perdaus is also selling one of his books at our centres. You may go to our social media campaigns to find out more about his books. We have been promoting the books every 2 weeks. Besides that, if you want to know more about Ustaz Haniff and his works, you can actually access to his website at haniff.sg. Okay, Ustaz, so I think that's the end for my section. Are you ready, Ustaz? Alhamdulillah. Okay, so without further ado, I will hand over the camera to Ustaz Haniff.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala. Respected Muslimin Muslimat, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I would like to begin my talk today by thanking Perdaus for giving me the opportunity to speak on the important topic commemorating Isra dan Mi'raj by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let us begin also our session, this sharing session, praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He bless our session, and by His blessing we gain benefit and strength to practice whatever good and benefit that we learn from this sharing session, insyaAllah. For the topic given and trusted to me, Isra and Mi'raj, lessons for a righteous society, I have prepared my sharing presentation which intend to achieve certain objective. The first objective is to learn, refresh information and theological significance of the event. Secondly, I would like to achieve some learning for the participant to learn important lessons about faith from a companion of the Prophet in relation to the Isra and Mi'raj event. Thirdly, to understand the meaning of faith and its application in today's context. For a start, let me begin with the introduction part, which is to introduce Isra and Mi'raj and its significance in Islam. First, let us look at the meaning first. What is the meaning of Isra and Mi'raj, linguistically and theologically? The word Isra and Mi'raj composed of two words, Isra, which means night travel linguistically. Theologically, it refers to the Prophet's night travel from Mecca to Masjid Al-Aqsa and back to Mecca in one single night. That is theological definition of Isra. As of Mi'raj, linguistically, it means climbing up or traveling up. Theologically, it refers to the Prophet's travel during the night of Al-Isra to a place called Sidratul Muntaha, which is, according to our ulama, the highest point a creature could ascend. The travel from Masjid Al-Aqsa in the night of Al-Isra. So that is the Mi'raj aspect of the Prophet's travel during that night. In short, there were two miracles in a single night. The first one is a to and fro travel in one night that usually will take 2 months period. But for the Prophet, he traveled with the help of Jibril and by the will of Allah SWT in just half a day or the whole night. A travel that usually will take 2 months over the distance. Secondly, the second miracle was a to and fro travel to sky to have audience with Allah and witness His signs from Bakar to Masjid Al-Aqsa to heaven to Masjid Al-Aqsa to Mecca from dusk till dawn. So that is the second miracles occurred during this Isra and Mi'raj night. The second point, the second part of my introduction is the historical aspect of the event. Here I would like to share one important thing which may not be covered or shared by many speakers about the event, that actually there is no consensus on actual date of the event by the ulama. In fact, the ulama differs on the actual date of the event. They differ in terms of which year, which month and which date. And there were more than 10 opinions of ulama on the actual date of the event. So this is just for information, I think additional information for viewers which may not be familiar about this thing. The important significance of this sharing is that just in case any of us came across material online or in non-online platform, speakers speak about Isra and Mi'raj, but mention the different date which we may use to know about. So don't be surprised and don't quickly jump to conclusion that he is propagating basically misguided information, or he has erred in basically speaking about the event. He may not, because he may be referring or he may be preferring to views of scholars that may not be popular among us in this region. Yes, the popular date about the event is 27 Rajab, which is I think few days back, this month, few days back, and it occurred during 12th year of the prophethood. In the year known as Al-Hazan, or year of sadness. What is the year of sadness? I will speak about this year of sadness in the later part of my presentation. What Muslim scholars are in consensus is about the occurrence of this event. In another word, there is no khilaf among our ulama whether Isra and Mi'raj occurred or not. So there is a consensus that this event truly occurred in the lifetime of the Prophet. The only thing that they differ is about the actual date. Why? Because the event itself mentioned in the Quran, first in Surah Al-Isra in the first verse. And the event also mentioned, especially the Mi'raj aspect mentioned by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in Surah An-Najm, from verse 7 to verse 18. So differing views on its actual date do not make the event theologically doubtful in view of the supporting scriptural evidences. And this is not exceptional. Why? Because there are many events in history where the occurrence has been accepted by historians and by many people, but they differ about the actual date of the event. So we should not use the excuse of the obscurity of the actual date to say that this event did not happen, to make a claim that this event did not happen during the Prophet time. It happened, and there is no differing view about the occurrence of this event among the scholars. More importantly, if you talk about science, science in today's context prove that the event is possible. Why? Because it takes just few hours to execute a return travel from Mecca to Al-Aqsa today. If a person use supersonic jet, modern jet fighter, which can travel up to 3 Mach the speed of sound. And we must understand that Allah's technology is far more advanced. So in today's context, the advancement of the technology should basically should strengthen our faith about this miraculous event instead of try to disprove the occurrence of this event. So in the past, during the period of the Prophet, if people have doubt that the Prophet ever experienced this thing truly, then it may be possible, because then space travel is all, don't talk about space travel, even flying is unimaginable for the people of that time. But if today's context people question whether this event can occur during the Prophet lifetime, it's just simply, we cannot understand why it cannot be occurred, because scientifically it is possible. Even space travel is almost a norm, an acceptance for people of today's context. What is contentious among the scholars is about how the Prophet experienced this event. And there are two views. The majority view of the scholars hold to the view that the Prophet experienced this event as a person, his wholesome person, which is the blood and flesh of the Prophet. And this is based on the word servant in verse 1 of Surah Al-Isra, which Allah says, Subhanalladzi asra bi'abdihi. Glory be to Allah, to God, that make the Prophet, his servant, abdihi, travel in the night. So the word abdihi is used by the scholars that it refers to the Prophet himself as a whole, in blood and flesh. Although there is minority view among scholars that view that the experience experienced by the Prophet is spiritual, meaning that his body, his physical body was in Mecca, only his soul traveled in the night from Mecca to Masjid Al-Aqsa and for the Mi'raj to seek audience to Allah SWT at Sidratul Muntaha. The third aspect of my presentation, the third part of my presentation, of my introduction, is about the theological significance of this event. The event is significant because Allah dedicated a surah in the Quran. A surah is named on the event, which is Surah Al-Isra, chapter number 17. Although the surah only has one verse speaking about the event, but that should not basically discount the importance and the significance of the event. Because by naming the surah to commemorate the event itself is showing Allah's intention about the significance and the importance for Muslim to take heed, to always remember this event. Secondly, Allah dedicated few more verses about the event in Surah An-Najm. So in total, there are 12 verses of the Quran talk about the event. One verse is in Surah Al-Isra and 11 verses in Surah An-Najm. In Surah An-Najm, the verses focus on the Mi'raj aspect of the travel. So, by naming a surah to commemorate the event and dedicated 12 verses for the event, that shows the significance of the event, and the significance means that Muslim must always basically think, ponder, and take heed about the event and how we can continuously learn lessons from the event. Because the surah is a permanent name in the Quran, and the Quran is for guidance for us until the end of time, until Qiyamah. Another theological significance of the event, this is relates to the Prophet himself, which we can take lesson from it. What is the significance for the Prophet? Because the event, the ulama says that the event is regarded as God's gift to the Prophet to console his sadness and strengthen his faith by demonstrating his signs. So by making the Prophet experience the event, basically Allah provide proof, empirical proof about the truth that has been revealed to him thus far. Before, the revelation only talks about hell, heaven, in text, in audio communication from Jibril. But by the event, Allah shows that hell, heaven truly exists. By witnessing himself, by making the Prophet witnessing all the things that has been described to him. And that is to strengthen his faith, and also to console him. Why to console him? Because according to the popular view, the year where the event occurred was the year of sadness. Why is the year named as the year of sadness? Because in that year, the Prophet lost two most staunch supporter of him, his uncle Abu Talib and his wife Khadijah. They died on that year as a consequence of the prolonged boycott of the Meccan Quraysh towards the Bani Hashim clan. The whole clan was economically boycotted by the Meccan Quraysh in order to prevent the Prophet from continuing his da'wah. And the effect of that boycott, the severity of that boycott is the health of the two most important supporters of the Prophet, and the effect of the health leads them to meet Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, to die in that year, and that saddens the Prophet tremendously. So basically, Allah tried to console him, to attend to his emotional situation by allowing him to travel. So here you can learn, see, travel helps to basically to uplift one's moral and emotional negative situation. But also to strengthen his faith by witnessing all that has been revealed to him before, which he has no privilege yet to witness with his own eyes and listen with his own ears. So that is another aspect of it. The third theological significance for the Muslims then, Allah created the event to test their faith. Why? Because when the Prophet experienced the event, he has to pronounce it to his people, because it was commanded to him to pronounce it to the people. So, but then again, during that time, the Prophet's claim of his travel overnight from Mecca to Jerusalem to Baitul Maqdis, and travel upwards Mi'raj to meet Allah SWT and receive direct command about the prayer, then it was an outlandish claim by the standard of that time. Why? Because by the standard of that time, normal travel duration for return trip from Mecca to Baitul Maqdis was 2 months. But the Prophet claimed that he did it in just one night, which is half a day, 12 hours. And during that time, space travel was also unimaginable. So, to have the Prophet claim that he traveled upwards to meet Allah SWT, something that just cannot be understood and comprehended by the people of that time. But Allah created the event to test Muslims. Why? Because to prepare them for the next stage of da'wah. What is the next stage of da'wah? Because the next stage of da'wah will be da'wah after hijrah, which is more challenging, more difficult, requires greater commitment and strength of faith. And therefore, Allah want to ensure that only those who have certain criteria, ability to meet the challenges will pass, will go through, and will struggle with the Prophet after during the hijrah, after the hijrah period. And truly, based on the historical records documented by our scholars, it was reported that when the Prophet make known about his experience that night, almost half of the Muslims, half of people who has embraced Islam in the hand of the Prophet, return back to their former faith, become pagans back. Why? Because they simply cannot accept that the Prophet's claim could be true. Now, let me enter to the more important aspect of my presentation, of my sharing today, which to cover the lesson. And this is more important. Every time when we commemorate important event in Islam, what is more important for Muslims is to always ask, what is the lesson, moral, spiritual, intellectual, and religious lesson that we can learn from the event, not just the historical aspect of it. Because if Allah concerned about the historical aspect, Allah would detail out the historical fact in the Quran. But Allah simply, in most of the event in story of in the Quran, we can find that many details, historical detail fact was basically not disclosed in the Quran. The thing that Allah mentioned is more about lessons, spiritual, moral, and also life lessons that Muslim must be aware and understand. So, for the purpose of this sharing about the lesson that we can learn from the event, I will take a focused approach, because to me it is necessary and a practical approach. Also because there will be more talks about Isra and Mi'raj, live or online, organized by many organizations, locals or foreign. I mean, in today's context, we can even listen speakers from America, from the States, from Europe, from Malaysia, Indonesia, speaking about Isra and Mi'raj. And there are many other materials, past talk about Isra and Mi'raj too, which is now accessible through to the net, and many of these materials details out lessons directly about the event, talking about basically the Prophet's experience, meeting with other Prophet, witnessing some unseen events which the Prophet experienced, about hell, about heaven, and many other details. I think this information, these details are important, which Muslims must continue to recap, to understand, and to look into it, to dig more lesson that they can get from these details. But I would want to share one aspect which, through my understanding and my reviewing of existing materials, not much talk about. So what I will cover will be, I will focus on a figure outside the Prophet's experience of the event, but closely related. Who is this figure? I will explain later. But from the figure, we can learn an important Islamic value. Not only important, but the lesson that I will share about this figure is a pillar for being Muslim. And this relates to the topic of the talk today, which is Isra Mi'raj and lessons for right-tier society. When we talk about right-tier society, right-tiers must be by the standard of Islam. And standard for Muslims, which is being true Muslims. And what I will be talking about this figure is indeed a pillar and a very important aspect of being right-tiers, as individual and collectively as a society. So let us begin. Who is this figure first that we are talking about, closely related with Isra and Mi'raj? This figure, his name is known as Abdullah bin Quhafa, also known popularly as Abu Bakar As-Siddiq. So actually, if I mention Abu Bakar As-Siddiq, everybody will know. But I start off with Abdullah bin Quhafa because I also want to introduce to people that Abu Bakar As-Siddiq has his actual name, which is Abdullah bin Quhafa. Abu Bakar As-Siddiq is just his nickname. So his actual name is Abdullah bin Quhafa, or he is also popularly known as Abu Bakar As-Siddiq. Before Isra and Mi'raj, he was only known as Abu Bakar, called by the companion by the Prophet as Abu Bakar. There was no As-Siddiq behind his nickname. Why? Because As-Siddiq was honorable title given to him for his unflinching trust and belief of the Prophet's story pertaining to Isra and Mi'raj. Isra and Mi'raj gave Abu Bakar the title As-Siddiq. That is what I mentioned. Although Abu Bakar As-Siddiq is a figure outside the Isra and Mi'raj experience, but he is closely related to the event. Why? Because he got that title from the event. So why he was given the title As-Siddiq? Let us look at the story reported in the hadith. The story went that when the Prophet returned back from the experience after travel at night to Jerusalem, then Mi'raj, return to Jerusalem, return to Mecca, he made pronouncement near the Kaabah to people of Mecca about what he experienced that night. And many people people of Mecca basically make fun of him, mock him, because it was almost impossible for such travel to occur. So a group of them then went to Abu Bakar and told Abu Bakar, "Ya Abu Bakar," they thought by meeting Abu Bakar, they can basically shaken the faith of Abu Bakar, and therefore basically try to separate between Abu Bakar and the Prophet. So they went to meet Abu Bakar and mentioned to Abu Bakar that your good friend Muhammad make this claim, make such an outlandish claim. Then Abu Bakar asked, what claim did he make? Then they said that he make this claim, travel from Mecca to Jerusalem and Mi'raj and return back in just one night, where we travel for 2 months. Then Abu Bakar said, if that is the claim of the Prophet Muhammad, I would believe him. I will not question the truth in his pronouncement. So because of his unflinching trust of the Prophet, acceptance to the truth, acceptance of truth from the Prophet in such a manner, the Prophet gave him the title of As-Siddiq. And up till now, he was always remembered as Abu Bakar As-Siddiq. First, why do we focus on this thing? Because As-Siddiq is an important virtue of Islam. In Islam, in matter of faith, there will never be true faith without As-Siddiq. Why? Because Allah SWT says, وَالَّذِي جَاءَ بِالصِّدْقِ وَصَدَّقَ بِهِ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُتَّقُونَ. Which means, he who brings the truth and he who wholeheartedly accept it as true, it is they who are truly conscious of him, muttaqun. A righteous person in Islam must always encompass this value of taqwa. How can we become Muslim without taqwa? How can we become righteous without taqwa? So if we are talking about being righteous society, being righteous person, we must have taqwa. But Allah says, for a person to attain taqwa, a person must not only know truth, but also affirm the truth wholeheartedly. Ja'a bis-sidqi wa saddaqa bihi. That is a righteous, a taqwa person. Why? Because you can have people out there, even in today's time, people who know about truth, know about Islam, but he does not affirm the truth. He is not Muslim, because he only know about Islam as an academic knowledge. He write book about Islam, speak book about Islam, but to accept Islam, he did not want. He chose another way, another religion, or another lifestyle. So that tells us that knowing about truth is not enough, but there must be tasdiq, there must be siddiq. And therefore, the value of siddiq is very important. Why? Because without this siddiq, there cannot be right faith, and without that, there cannot be taqwa, and without that, we cannot become a righteous person. The topic and the focus of our talk today in relation to Isra and Mi'raj. That is why I chose this angle to talk about this event. But now, when we talk about Siddiq in relation to what Abu Bakar did in relation to the event, it's not just about emulating Abu Bakar's great character, which is strong faith and belief manifested in unflinching trust in the Prophet and tasdiq of truth. It's not just about that. Why? Because if we only understand Siddiq in that manner, then we actually misunderstood the true meaning of Siddiq in Islam. Because by looking at Abu Bakar just based on this hadith, it appears to us as if the superior form of faith is to just accept any claim of truth without question. And indeed, if you read materials about materials about Islam, some people, some scholars may claim that the superior maqam of Siddiq is the superior maqam of Siddiq, where any person make claim of Islam, we must obey. And this could be dangerous. Why? Then you can find an ustaz who claim himself, or mbah who claim himself, I have knowledge of truth, and therefore accept me. Why? Because the true form of a believer is like Abu Bakar. Whatever that I convey to you in the name of the Prophet as truth, then you become like Abu Bakar to me. Then I give you title of As-Siddiq. Members level of Siddiq. So that is, to me, that is a misguided, misunderstood form of Siddiq in Islam. Why? Because the hadith about the Abu Bakar is just part of the story. Abu Bakar did not apply Siddiq in a dogmatic manner. Abu Bakar does not accept faith, does not practice Islam in a dogmatic manner. Therefore, my message to Muslims in relation to the event, when we remember also Abu Bakar unflinching trust of the Prophet's claim and pronouncement that Siddiq in Islam is never a dogma, as claimed by some people, based on selective or incomplete information about what Abu Bakar did during that event. So Abu Bakar's attitude is not evidence for Islam's endorsement of dogmatism in the name of Siddiq, which is blind following obedience in Islamic theology, or to make a claim that superiority of such Siddiq. In fact, I will argue from my reading, and I will present my argument on this thing, that Abu Bakar's affirmation of the Prophet's story is rational and knowledge-based. Based on right knowledge about the Prophet and calculation that by balance of probability, the Prophet could not be lying. So what is the basis that make Abu Bakar accept the truth from the Prophet? Although during that period, the news and the pronouncement from the Prophet is almost impossible to occur, to experience by any person. First, when Abu Bakar accepted the claim of the Prophet, The rational explanation to this thing is that the Prophet's character, the Prophet then was already known as As-Sadiqul Amin, the person who is truthful and trustworthy. And this status has been accepted by the Meccan people. The title given for the Prophet As-Sadiqul Amin, that title is given by the people of Mecca. It's not a title that is basically claimed, self-proclaimed by the Prophet. It was given to him. It was given to him long before he claimed his claim of prophethood. Before he became prophet, the whole Meccan society had known the Prophet for As-Sadiqul Amin. Why the people of, or the whole population of Mecca gave that title to the Prophet? It's because they know the Prophet, they have never experienced that once that the Prophet told lie to them. That is why when the first time when the Prophet made pronouncement in one of the hill in Mecca about he was appointed as a prophet to them, his beginning speech with a question. If I told you people that there is an army behind this mountain planning to attack Mecca, will you all believe me? And all of them say, we never know that you ever told lies, therefore we will believe you. But once he said that I'm a prophet from Allah SWT that called upon you to worship Allah SWT, the one and only, and stop worship all these idols, suddenly they changed their tune. The Prophet become mad person, become sorcerer to them, become liar, become divider of the community, and so on. So here, when first of all, when Abu Bakar gave such unflinching trust to the Prophet, because he already know that the Prophet was vouched by so many people, by the whole population of Mecca, that he is a person that would never tell lies to anybody. Although the news, the claim may be outlandish. What more important is that he already believed that the Prophet was, that Muhammad was the Prophet. And during that period of time, everybody knows that any prophet would be able to perform miraculous things. And therefore, even if the event is almost impossible to happen, that itself is enough for the Abu Bakar to admit and to accept the claim of the Prophet without question. So here Abu Bakar used two important bases to accept the claim of the Prophet. First, his knowledge that the Prophet will never tell lies. Secondly, his belief that the Prophet is the Prophet, and therefore he can perform miraculous things. And that is very rational for any person. But then again, even Abu Bakar, he did not stop that to accept the news. Why? This is the second aspect of the story which many may not know about it. Abu Bakar then, after listening to the people of Mecca that came to him to inform him about the news, about the claim of the Prophet, he went to the Prophet directly, meet him and asked him, "O Prophet, O Muhammad, did you make such claim?" And the Prophet says, "Yes." Then Abu Bakar asked him, "If truly you travel to Baitul Maqdis, to Masjidil Aqsa, then describe me the place." Then Allah make the Prophet see the place and describe the windows, the number of doors and everything. And then Abu Bakar says, "You are correct. Everything that you describe is true." Why? Because Abu Bakar know the place. How come Abu Bakar knew the place? Because he traveled to the place. Why? Because he was a businessman. As businessman, it is common for business, for traders to travel to Jerusalem, to Baitul Maqdis, to bring their caravan, their goods to sell them at Jerusalem. That is why there's this surah, Li'ila fi Quraysh, Ila fi rihlata shita'i was-sayf. That the Quraysh, they have 2 seasons of travel. Northward travel to Sham, to Palestine for winter, and southward travel to Yemen. So Abu Bakar, being a trader, he used to travel to Palestine, to Masjid Al-Aqsa, and therefore he knew well the place. So he asked the Prophet, describe me the place. And when the Prophet described the place in front of everybody, every person who was there and who knew the place well, because they are traders, fellow traders like Abu Bakar, they affirmed that the description is correct. So see, even Abu Bakar actually, he did not accept the truth blindly. He verified. He counter-checked with the Prophet, and he requested the Prophet to provide the empirical evidence, which is the description of the place, which is correct. So that only strengthened the Abu Bakar belief on the Prophet. So truth is central in Islam, and Islam is all about truth. And as I mentioned, I recited the verse of the Quran just now. Islam is not just about having faith, iman, but faith must also be affirmed with tasdiq. So Siddiq in Islam, but Siddiq in Islam cannot be dogmatic, or cannot be a blind taqlid, blind following. But Siddiq in Islam must be knowledge-based, evidence-based, rational and methodological argument via critical assessment of information, knowledge and data. And this is what Allah mean when He revealed a verse in Surah Yusuf, verse 108, which says, "Qul hadhihi sabili ad'u ila Allahi ala basiratin." Tell Muhammad, oh Muhammad, tell people that this is my way, this is my path. So I wonder whether, if any of one watch, what is the movie? Mandalorian. This is the way. Actually, in the Quran, there is this is the way of the Prophet, and the way of the Prophet is Qul hadhihi sabili ad'u ila Allah. Call people to Allah, but Allah basiratin. Allah basiratin. The Prophet did not only command the Prophet to call people to Allah, but to call people to Allah ala basiratin. What does ala basiratin means? Ala basiratin means based on knowledge, based on conviction, based on evidence. Allah did not only command the Prophet to convey about truth, to make people believe in him, lead people to right religion, but also it must be performed in a manner that is based on knowledge, with conviction, and that what it means by tasdiq. So this is actually the real meaning of Siddiq and tasdiq in Islam. That Siddiq and tasdiq must be accompanied with true argument, with proper understanding, with right knowledge, deduced from proper methodological research and thinking. Not just accept any claim of truth, trust on it based on pure trust on individuals, which is very personalistic kind of understanding and acceptance of truth. And this is more important for us to understand Siddiq in this manner. Why? Because in today's context, there is no person who has the same standing of the Prophet. I may have PhD, but I'm not a Prophet. and being a normal human being, a non-prophet, I'm not fallible. I am fallible, I'm not infallible. I'm not maksum. So we must also understand when Abu Bakar radiallahu anhu accept truth in that manner reported in the hadith, he was accepting truth from the Prophet himself, which rationally has been vouched by people to be trustworthy, and also as a prophet which is known to him as maksum. Although this is very impossible, but he is the prophet. But after the prophet died, no person has the equal standing of the prophet, despite the knowledge that the person has, the educational standing of that person, and therefore we must be very, very prudent and cautious to practice the level of Siddiq practiced by the Abu Bakar towards the Prophet, because there is no Prophet anymore in today's context. So there is no infallible person after the death of the Prophet, and therefore critical thinking in Siddiq has become more important today. If you are going to allow blind Siddiq, unflinching Siddiq and trust, unquestioning acceptance of any claim of truth in the name of religion, we only open wide gate for all sort of claim based on personality, and that could be dangerous. Not only that is theologically and conceptually wrong in Islam, but that will open more detriments for the well-being of our society, which may hamper our mission to basically to develop a right, to achieve a righteous society condition. And here, Allah is the most wise. He know Abu Bakar and Rasulullah best friends, and they trust each other. And therefore Allah planned in such a way, these two people, despite being righteous person, honest and trustworthy person, they trust each other, but because they are too trusting to each other, in one day they make judgment. They make judgment, they make misjudgment that Allah basically, how should I say, reprimand, quote unquote lah. I mean, for lack of better word, but Allah reprimand both of them. And I'm not saying this out of disrespect, but just to say the seriousness of their misjudgment. What is this incident? The Prophet misjudged in the case of Meccans captured as POW after the Battle of Badr. So after the Battle of Badr, there were a group of Meccan people, pagans, captured as prisoner of war. So the army, the Prophet and the companions faced with this situation, what to do with this prisoner of war. So the Prophet organize a meeting with his senior companion and discuss about the problem. Saidina Umar radiallahu an suggested that all these prisoner of war should be executed as warning to the others. Abu Bakar Siddiq suggests a more merciful idea, which is to ransom them, and that is also better from rational, because by ransoming you gain money, asset that would help you to pursue your to reinvest for your military and for running of your society in Medina. It's basically, it's not something that is not bad, that is bad. It's logical to and that is also practiced by many rulers during that period of time. And the Prophet inclined towards Abu Bakar. Why? Because Abu Bakar is closer to him. Abu Bakar, trustworthy person. But what happened? Allah corrected both of them. And in this case, Allah favored the opinion of Umar. And in the hadith reported by Muslim, this is hadith from Muslim, when Allah revealed the verse that corrected both Abu Bakar and the Prophet for their misjudgment in making decision pertaining to the POW after the Battle of Badr, both of them was found crying by Umar. Can you imagine the Prophet and Abu Bakar crying? And they are truly crying. So Umar came to them. What happened? Why both of you are crying? Let me know. So I can cry with you. Even if I cannot cry, I will try to cry with you because of our solidarity. Then both Abu Bakar and Umar informed that Allah has revealed to us correcting our misjudgment, and the revelation is so strong that make them cry. And this revelation I highlighted in the long hadith in red text in my slide. You can read yourself about the incident, how Allah corrected. And you can also read the verse from the Quran in Surah if I'm not mistaken, in Surah Al-Anfal, that corrected the Prophet. And you when you read the verse, you will see how serious and severe the warning came from Allah SWT. The correction came from Allah SWT. And therefore the Prophet, when the Prophet Abu Bakar received this revelation, they cried because they fear that such warning will befall on them. So here what we learn, by Allah's wisdom and Allah plan teach us that even among person that we trust about the righteousness of that person, the knowledge of that person, critical thinking, prudence must still be applied, because you can never know. The person can still err, can still misjudge. And here we are talking about the Prophet and the Abu Bakar. What more if we talk about in today's context, when my friend is not Abu Bakar and I'm not a prophet to any person, or I'm not Abu Bakar to any person, and neither there is a Prophet Muhammad that I should render my Siddiq dogmatically or without question. So let us learn so here we learn what does Siddiq truly mean in Islam, despite its importance. So finally, my conclusion, Isra Mi'raj, key reminder for our righteous society is about the importance of Siddiq. Why? Because Muslims should always affirm what is truth and to be on its side despite the odds and challenges. But Siddiq is not dogmatic and blind obedience in Islam. It must be knowledge and evidence based. We also learn from Isra and Mi'raj that what could not be proven rationally and scientifically may not be necessarily untrue. So don't quick to discount rational argument even in matters of faith. But don't quick to discount rational argument even in matters of faith, such as belief in the unseen, ghaibiyat. If we cannot find direct argument, direct evidence to accept claim of truth, at least we should strive for proxy evidence, just like what Abu Bakar did to the Prophet. He did not have direct evidence, but he verified the news from the Prophet and he tested the Prophet. How he tests? He asked for description of the place where the Prophet claimed he visited the place that night. So proxy evidence may still be available in the absence of direct evidence, such as integrity of the Prophet as proxy evidence of his truth claim. So don't quick to dismiss what the mind could not comprehend yet. truth could still be affirmed based on proxy evidence. In today's context, we must understand that there is no person infallible after the Prophet, and therefore all claims of truth must be assessed critically on scriptural evidence, on logical argument, based on methodological approach and relevant knowledge before applying Siddiq. So, I will want to end my presentation with final point, which is be like Abu Bakar in relation to the Isra and Mi'raj event, where via that event he was given the honorable title of As-Siddiq. But As-Siddiq applied by Abu Bakar is not unflinching trust of the Prophet. Is unflinching trust of the Prophet but not dogmatic, unlike some popular opinion. Why Abu Bakar was not dogmatic in his Siddiq towards the Prophet? Because he verified news. He looked for supporting proofs despite the Prophet known to be Al-Amin. So if Abu Bakar did this to the Prophet, we should also did the same to any person who came to us claiming for truth, speaking for Islam, speaking for religion and whatsoever. I end here for now, and I look forward for any question and engagement from the viewers. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much, Ustaz, for the very interesting discussion on Isra Mi'raj and a very unique focus on Saidina Abu Bakar himself, Alhamdulillah. We are now in the Q&A section. So if you're interested to ask a query, you can type your question in the chat box or unmute yourself and ask straight away. So any questions so far, Afifah? No questions so far. Okay, perhaps I can start one question first. So Ustaz, you were saying just now that it is considered that the Prophet ascended to the heavens bodily, physically, and not spiritually. And spiritually is a minority view lah. Is there like so as I understand, the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah is the one who says that it's bodily go up. So is it like if we are to teach our children and our peers to talk about Isra Mi'raj about this, again with regards to rationality in this modern world, sometimes they would still have a hard time understanding that and to tasdik that lah, as you were saying. So is it a must for us to convince them, or how to convince them in this manner?
I don't find why should people of this time cannot believe that a person can travel upwards to sky, to space bodily, because it happened. It has happened. Astronauts travel. The only thing is that when you talk about Sidratul Muntaha, which part of space? But traveling to space is non-issue in today's context. The only thing is that which part of space Sidratul Muntaha. And science never discount that human cannot travel even up to Pluto or whatsoever. The only thing that is the question is that it's about safety, security. Whether when you travel that far, what would happen to that person? That there is a risk that scientists would not want to basically take it. To take it. But about traveling up to there, sending rockets or whatever, the ability is there. So for young people who inclined to be rational, I just cannot understand why they should not be able to comprehend and accept the fact that man can travel to space. The only thing is that when they ask Sidratul Muntaha, where is Sidratul Muntaha? That I have to admit that we never know where is Sidratul Muntaha.
So the technology that did not exist during that time?
No, Hatim was asking about today, is it? Yes, youth today. Because they are rational, how do we convince them about Isra and Mi'raj? So I don't, from rational point of view, why should a rational person cannot comprehend in today's context that the Prophet can travel to space?
If not into this context, in that context of that time.
Like they barely can travel.
Without the technology that exists today, that the Prophet was able to travel without the technology that is present today. He was able to travel through space and time.
That is why proxy evidence is important.
What is proxy evidence?
Proxy evidence means the fact that the Prophet was known to have a character that everybody has vouched that he will not tell lies.
Oh, like mantik lah. A is B, so therefore, and B is C, so therefore A is C lah. Like that.
Therefore, he may be making an outlandish claim and cannot provide, but I never know that he tell lies. It's just that he's not able to give direct evidence yet, but I never know he tell lies. And this is also rational because many of us learn science through that process also. Even myself, I learn PhD, I read out of trust of this writer known to be expert, authority on this thing. I don't check every single claim, replicate all the research that he did. Then he's a person that everybody know that he's a trustworthy. He's a professor of this field. He has made this study. I check his study looks sound. His ideas look sound. Therefore, I accept it. That is enough for me to accept the claim made in his book or in his journal. I don't really go through basically replicating his study to ensure that what he claimed is true. So everybody go through the same process. What is not accepted in Islam is basically you accept it purely based on dogma, means no question. But if you say, but that Ustaz, didn't Abu Bakar basically apply Siddiq to the Prophet? I mean that is personality. Yes, but this is a personality where the whole population has vouched about him not telling any lies and no experience about telling any lies.
It's a clear background lah.
There's a clear background. And also because Abu Bakar has already believed that he's a prophet. And everybody know if a person is a prophet, he always able to basically to perform a miraculous thing. The Quraysh did not want to accept, did not want to believe the Prophet because first, they have some other ulterior motive not to believe the Prophet. They never basically back down from their original position that this is As-Siddiq Amin. They still believe. It's just why they don't believe in the Prophet? Why? Because some aspect of it is political. Because if they are going to accept the Prophet as the Prophet, they have to hand over all their authority, all their status to the leadership of the Prophet. They do not want to do that. That's why they for no reason, suddenly the Prophet become crazy person, divider of society, a sorcerer to him, to them. Then they do not want also because they do not want to accept Muhammad as the prophet, and therefore they do not want to consider that he is able to perform miraculous thing. So the consideration that this could be miraculous, few miraculous thing that the prophet can do is not in their mind. Therefore, without direct evidence, they would not want to accept it.
Okay, a lot to talk about lah. Yeah, I was thinking. So viewers who are tuning in on Zoom, if you have any questions, you have 10 minutes left. If you don't want to chat on the box, you can unmute yourself actually. So any people so far? doing that. I welcome any further questions. And please stay on topic with regards to the queries, because we are only answering questions on Isra and Mi'raj today. None so far?
Okay, let me share with you incidents within the Isra and Mi'raj experience of the Prophet, to basically to support my argument about the kind of Siddiq that Muslim must have before in relation to truth. See, one of the popular story in the event of Isra Mi'raj is that the Prophet went upwards to Mi'raj and met and accept the obligation of prayers. The original obligation was 50 prayers, 50 solat per day. Then he came down and met Prophet Moses, right? When Prophet Musa accept basically host Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked Nabi Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, what did Allah tell you, revealed to you for your people? The Prophet says he make 50 solat obligatory to my people. Then Prophet Musa kata, you must go back upwards and appeal for discount. Why? Because your people will not be able to perform these 50 prayers. And out of the advice, Prophet go up again and meet Allah SWT and ask for discount. Every time when the Prophet meet, Allah give discount 5. Right? So 9 times upwards, up down until become 5. So when become 5, go up again, appeal for discount, reduction. The Prophet say, I become paiseh already. 5, the 9 times, this is 5. How less that I want to ask? Paiseh already, never mind lah, 5, I accept 5. And that become 5 as what we understood today, the 5 obligatory prayers per day. The point here is that, not say and bargain. Nabi Musa himself critically did not basically apply Siddiq and obedience to Allah SWT unquestioning. And Allah did not reprimand Nabi Musa for inciting, cocok Nabi Muhammad for appealing 9 times. Do we ever read in our tradition, after the event Allah, Musa, kau ni memandai-mandai, so clever, you go and cocok Nabi Muhammad to appeal 9 times? No. And the Prophet himself was never reprimanded by Allah SWT for appealing 9 times. To get reduction from 50 obligatory prayers to only 5. That process itself inform us about even the Prophet when they receive command from Allah SWT, they did not receive it as what popularly propagated, sami'na wa ata'na. They go to that question of bargaining, discussing.
So when they reach a conclusion, then sami'na wa
Then
ata'na.
after the final one, then sami'na wa ata'na. Until then, the process of critical assessment, bargaining, discussion occurs.
So it's like striving.
Yes. And we find many other evidence. In Surah Bakar, Nabi Ibrahim ask Allah SWT about how do you make dead creatures become alive back. Kaifa tuhyil mauta. Then Allah asked Nabi Ibrahim, awalam tu'min, did you not believe, O Ibrahim? But Ibrahim said, walakin liyatma'inna qalbi, to strengthen my conviction, to make me more convinced, and to at least
Give double confirm.
seeing strengthen my faith, although I still believe it. And there are many other many other instances in the Quran which inform us about this idea about Siddiq and faith in Islam, that it's not something that we accept just on face value, any claim of truth. And this is practiced by the Prophet and between companions and the Prophet. What more today when we don't have Prophet among us and we are dealing with normal human being? Such critical assessment of before accepting truth is more important and more suitable for Muslims today, rather than accepting truth by any person in the name of Islam.
Okay, Ustaz, we actually have one question. Okay, so I think I will take this as the last question lah. There is one question on just now you mentioned about Surah Al-Anfal when Rasulullah and Saidina Abu Bakar was reprimanded by Allah. So she was asking why is this so? Like why was Allah reprimanding Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam with regards to what the decision was made?
Because according to Allah, the right decision during that period of time is to execute the prisoner, to practice a more harsh, to choose a more harsh position rather than a softer one. That is Allah, what Allah revealed in the verse. Although at the end of the day, after the completion of the Sharia, eventually the option to ransom a prisoner of war is permissible in Islam, because that is after during the end period of the Prophet Muhammad lifetime. And this is basically mentioned in Surah Muhammad verse 4, where Allah SWT mentioned that ransoming prisoner of war is part of the options given to commanders, military commanders, when dealing with enemy combatant.
So you can like the ayat was dimansuhkan lah in sense. Okay.
So
yeah.
that verse should not be a dalil to say that Islam's command towards prisoner of war is to execute. No, that is not the hukum. The hukum that reprimand comes from Allah to the Prophet only for that particular event. But the hukum remains stand. The hukum valid because there is another verse which was revealed later during the end of the Prophet's life in Surah Muhammad verse 4, where Allah says that ransoming is part of the option given even for the Prophet when dealing with an enemy combatant.
Okay, so thank you so much for that. There's one more question. I don't know whether we want to take again. Maybe just one more lah. Ustaz, I was informed that 7 layers of the sky is just a number for reference, but not really actual. So is this true in terms of the numbers of heavens?
Yes. There are many opinions of our scholars during classical period up till today, that when Allah says 7 heavens, 7 layers of earth, whatsoever, does that really mean 7? One key opinion of the scholars is that 7 is just metaphorical. It's not really 7. It may not necessarily mean 7, and that is part of the valid tradition opinion that we have among our scholars. So yes, there are some scholars who accept 7 is 7, and some modern scholars strive to explain 7 in scientific manner, where it refers to all these layers of sky. What they call it?
7 layers.
7 layers
of heavens.
7 layers of sky. There are seven terminology, using all the scientific terminology that scientists discover about the sky and the space today. They try to explain it in that manner. But it is also a valid opinion among our scholars in our tradition that 7 does not necessarily mean 7. Because in Arabic word, 7 is always used to indicate many numbers. And I personally incline towards this view that 7 may not necessarily mean 7, and it may necessarily it may mean many numbers, many layers. Even when we talk about syurga, 7 syurga, and some ulama put every single name for each syurga. That itself is more of interpretation rather than basically clearly stipulation from the scriptural evidence. Because Allah did not say that Al-Ma'wa in the Quran refer to this syurga, An-Na'im refer to this syurga. What we know that Allah named syurga with various names. There is An-Na'im, Darul Khuld, Al-Ma'wa. It may refer to the same syurga. Although some scholars say that it refers to different type of syurga.
Different stages also.
Different stages of syurga, which they put in numbers. They collate everything and make it like 7 syurga.
7 types. Okay. I think yes. So we have already reached our time. We thank Ustaz Haniff so much for the session and for the Q&A as well. I believe that all of us have benefited tremendously from his sharing. Can I open the screen? Yeah, just share my screen. We would like to apologize for any shortcomings on our end. We highly welcome your feedback. Sorry? Mirror? Oh, okay, sorry. Some technical issue here. Let me settle it. Okay. Okay, now you can see the form here. You can actually feedback to us on any shortcomings on our end or what you like about our session today, and you can also propose any topics in the future for us to contend with for our next Perdaus monthly sessions. So don't also forget to register for our upcoming sessions. Next is Ramadan in the New Norm with Your Little Ones with Ustazah Haniff, and an IG live session with Ustaz Taufik and Ustaz Hidayat on powering up your night of power. All the links are on the chat box, so you are welcome to click on that. And also don't forget to donate to Perdaus to help us create more dakwah activities, events and resources that benefit us all. You can actually scan the QR code for a direct pay now donation, or you can also go to our website at www.perdaus.org.sg to donate via giving.sg or PayPal, right from the comfort of your own house. Once again, we would like to send a special thanks to jomsembang.sg for providing us with good space and good camera work for today. Alhamdulillah. So Ustaz, I would like to welcome you again to do the closing tasbih kafarah and Surah Al-Asr.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. For the closing dua, let us recite Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi washabihi man wala. Allahumma ij'al jam'ana hadha jam'an marhuma wa tafarruqana min ba'di tafarruqan ma'suma. Allahumma la tada' fi maqamina hadha dhanban illa ghafarta wa la hamman illa farajta wa la maridan illa shafaita wa la hajatan illa qadaita bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzabannar. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus solihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you so much everyone. We're logging off for now. See you again next week inshallah. Next month inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.